The diplomatic shuttle crossed into Galactic Coalition space without incident. Commander Tae-young stood at the viewing port, watching as alien vessels formed an escort pattern around them. Their ships were beautiful, smooth curves, glowing with soft blue and purple energy. Nothing like the angular warships back home on Earth. Captain Hana joined him at the window. She wore her dress uniform, crisp and formal, though her hand never strayed far from her sidearm. Old habits from the resource wars died hard. They're pretty, Hana said quietly. Like artwork, Tae-young nodded. Let's hope they're friendly artwork. The Coalition capital station loomed ahead, a massive structure that could house millions. Docking procedures were smooth, practiced. When the airlock opened, they were greeted by 3 alien representatives. The first was Vraxi, an insectoid being with 4 arms and compound eyes that glittered in the station's light. The translator device on its thorax spoke in perfect English. Welcome, humans. I am Chancellor Vrax. We have waited long to meet you properly. The second was Luminar, a crystalline being that seemed to be made of living glass. Light moved through its body in patterns that might have been speech. We greet you with hope, the translator rendered. The third was Kresh, reptilian and imposing, with scales that shifted from green to red. It did not bow or offer greeting. It simply watched them with cold, calculating eyes. The council chambers were grand. Representatives from 23 different species sat in a circular arrangement. Tae-young and Hana were given seats in the center, feeling very much like specimens under examination. Chancellor Vrax began the formal welcome. Humanity has been observed for many cycles. You have achieved faster-than-light travel. You have unified your world. You have met the basic requirements for coalition membership. Thank you, Tae-young replied carefully. Earth is honored by this invitation. However, the Kresh representative interrupted. Membership requires understanding. Do you understand our ways, our laws, our methods of resolving disputes? Hana felt tension creep up her spine. The Kresh's tone was challenging, almost mocking. The Luminar High Arbiter's light patterns flowed soothingly. Peace, War Prime Kesh, let us explain before we judge. It turned its attention to the humans. We maintain order through the Treaty of Controlled Engagement. Perhaps you should see what this means. Holographic displays activated around them. Tae-young and Hana watched footage of what the Coalition called warfare. 2 fleets faced each other in the void of space. Energy weapons fired, striking shields that flared and absorbed the damage. Ships maneuvered in precise formations like dancers following choreography. The battle lasted for hours. When one side's shields began to fail, they withdrew. The other side did not pursue. No casualties? Hana asked, unable to hide her surprise. Casualties? Chancellor Vrax seemed confused. Why would there be casualties? The battle was decided. The Margat Collective had superior shield harmonics. The Darren Confederation acknowledged defeat and ceded the disputed mining rights. Tae-young exchanged a glance with Hana. On Earth, we have a different understanding of warfare. Primitive understanding, War Prime Kesh said dismissively. We have studied your history. Millions dead in conflicts, nuclear weapons, chemical warfare, orbital bombardment during your resource wars, barbaric. Hana's jaw tightened, but she kept her voice level. We survived those conflicts. We learned from them. Did you? The Kresh leaned forward. Or did you simply run out of enemies to slaughter? Chancellor Vrax clicked its mandibles in what might have been disapproval. War Prime, please. We are here to educate, not antagonize. It turned back to the humans. You must understand, true civilization means moving beyond death as a tool of policy. War is inevitable. Competition for resources, territorial disputes, ideological differences. These things cannot be eliminated. But they can be managed. Made predictable, made safe. The Luminar added, we calculate, we measure. We determine victory through mathematics and technology, not through suffering and death. Tae-young tried to process this. An entire galactic civilization that had turned war into a sport. It seemed impossible. What happens if someone breaks these rules? What if an enemy doesn't stop when they're supposed to? It has never happened, Chancellor Vrax said simply. All coalition species understand the logic. Fighting to the death means both sides lose. Fighting to a calculated conclusion means the stronger civilization advances and the weaker learns and adapts. In 20,000 cycles, we have not had a single war of extinction. Impressive, Tae-young admitted, and it was. but something felt wrong about it too. War Prime Kesh stood, its scales now fully red with aggression. I propose a test. Let humanity demonstrate they understand civilized warfare. A combat exhibition in 3 months. My vessels against theirs. If they can follow the treaty, they may join us. If they cannot, it left the threat hanging. The council murmured among themselves in various alien languages. Finally, Chancellor Vrack spoke. This is acceptable. Humanity, will you agree to this demonstration? Tae-Yang knew they had no real choice. Earth wanted coalition membership desperately. Access to their trade networks, their technology, their knowledge. We agree. The meeting concluded with formal pleasantries. As they walked back to their shuttle, Hana let out a breath she'd been holding. That was a setup. The Kresh wants to humiliate us. Maybe, Tae-Yang agreed. Or maybe they're genuinely worried about what we represent. He paused. We need to study their combat records. All of them. We have 3 months to learn how they fight. The next weeks were intensive. Tae-Yang and Hana watched hundreds of hours of coalition battles. Every engagement followed patterns. Ships fired at maximum range, never closing for decisive blows. Shield percentages were monitored constantly. When one side reached critical levels, they withdrew. The victors never pursued. It was warfare as mathematics, as claimed. Hana grew increasingly uneasy. This isn't war, she said one evening, reviewing another bloodless battle. This is a game. A very expensive, very complicated game. That's the point, Tae-Yang replied. They've eliminated the horror, made conflict civilized. Nothing civilized about conflict, Hana muttered. You can dress it up, make rules, calculate outcomes. But war is about survival, about destroying the enemy's ability to hurt you. They've forgotten that. Tae-Yang looked at his companion. Hana had fought in the resource wars, seen real combat during Earth's final great conflict. She'd lost friends, nearly lost her own life. She knew what war actually cost. Maybe that's good, Tae-Yang said quietly. Maybe they've evolved past what we've been through. Maybe, Hana said. Or maybe they've just been lucky. Lucky that nothing truly dangerous has challenged them. The message from Earth arrived in the 3rd week. Admiral Daewon and the battleship Indomitable Will were being dispatched. Estimated arrival at Coalition space in 6 weeks. Tae-Yang felt relief and worry in equal measure. Daewon was a legend, a hero of the resource wars. If anyone could navigate this political minefield, it was him. But the Indomitable Will was also a warship. A real warship. Built not for exhibitions but for survival, for victory at any cost. Tae-Yang wondered if the coalition was ready to see what human military engineering actually looked like. Hana seemed to read his thoughts. They asked for a demonstration. They're going to get one. In the depths of space, the Indomitable Will burned toward Coalition space. On its bridge, Admiral Daewon reviewed his orders. Demonstrate capability, follow their rules if possible, but above all, protect Earth's interests. He looked at his crew, men and women who'd trained for real combat, not theatrical displays. They were professionals, disciplined, ready for anything. 6 weeks until we arrive, he told them. Study everything Command sends us about coalition warfare. Learn their doctrine. Understand their expectations. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Ji-Woo, frowned at the combat footage on her screen. Sir, this isn't warfare. This is target practice. Then we'll show them what real practice looks like. Daewon replied quietly. The Indomitable Will continued its journey, carrying with it the weight of human history. The coalition waited, confident in their superiority. War Prime Kesh prepared his vessels, eager to humble the newcomers. None of them understood what was coming. None of them knew that humanity's definition of war was written in the ashes of extinct civilizations and the memories of billions of dead. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson it had forgotten over millennia of peace. War was not a game. War was survival, and humans had learned to survive against impossible odds. The asteroid field hung in the darkness like frozen rain. Coalition observation platforms positioned themselves at safe distances. Thousands of spectators eager to watch humanity's first combat exhibition. It was meant to be educational, entertaining, a formal demonstration of capabilities. The Kresh vessels arrived first, 3 cruisers, each one gleaming with polished metal and energy shields already active. Their hulls were decorated with traditional war markings, glowing patterns that proclaimed the honor of their crews. War Prime Kesh commanded from the lead ship, confident and eager. Then the indomitable will emerged from hyperspace. The Coalition observers went silent. This was not what they expected. The human battleship was massive, but it held none of the elegance they associated with warships. It was angular, brutal in its design. Dark gray armor plating covered every surface, scarred and pitted from what must have been previous battles. No energy shields shimmered around its hull. No decorative lights proclaimed its presence. It simply existed, dark and menacing, running on minimal power. Chancellor Varax watched from the primary observation platform. That cannot be their frontline vessel. It appears damaged. The Luminar High Arbiter pulsed with uncertain colors. Scanning shows the armor is intentional. Multiple layers. Extremely dense. This is their design philosophy. Taiyang and Hana stood beside them, watching their own vessel with mixed pride and concern. The indomitable will looked exactly like what it was. A ship built to survive the unsurvivable and deliver death in return. Why no shields? A Margot representative asked, genuinely curious. Shields can fail, Hana said quietly. Armor doesn't. On the bridge of the indomitable will, Admiral Day-Wan sat calmly in his command chair. Around him, his crew worked with practiced efficiency. No one spoke unnecessarily. No one showed excitement or nervousness. They were professionals preparing for combat. Lieutenant Jiwoo studied her tactical displays. 3 crash cruisers. Standard coalition configuration. Energy shields at full power. Plasma weapons armed. They're maintaining a spread formation. Weapon status, Day-Wan asked. Railguns loaded and ready. Missile bays standing by. Point defense systems active, Day-Wan nodded. Remember, this is supposed to be an exhibition. We're not here to destroy them. Just show them what we can do. His executive officer, Commander Sung-Ho, raised an eyebrow. Sir, their vessels aren't built to handle kinetic impacts. If we fire a railgun, I'm aware, Day-Wan said. We'll use minimal charge. Aim for non-critical systems. The goal is to demonstrate, not annihilate. Ensign Yuna in communications received the formal challenge from War Prime Kesh. It was elaborate, full of ritual phrases about honor and strength. She looked to the Admiral. Acknowledge receipt, Day-Wan said. Tell them we're ready to begin when they are. The simple response seemed to confuse the Kresh. War Prime Kesh expected counter-challenges, formal declarations. Instead, the humans just waited. They have no sense of honor, Kesh muttered to his crew. Very well. If they want a demonstration, we shall provide one. Fire when ready. The Kresh cruisers opened fire simultaneously. Plasma lances, brilliant and hot, crossed the distance between fleets. They struck the indomitable will's hull exactly where the shields should have been. The plasma dissipated. The armor absorbed the heat, glowing briefly red before cooling. No penetration. No damage. On the observation platform, shocked silence fell. Chancellor Vrax's translator struggled to express his confusion. The energy. It did nothing. How is this possible? Reactive armor, Hana explained. Designed to disperse energy weapons. It's not as efficient as shields for that purpose, but it never runs out of power. The Kresh fired again. More plasma strikes. Still no significant damage. War Prime Kesh felt the first touch of uncertainty. His weapons should have degraded the enemy shields by now. They should be calculating relative power levels, determining the victor through mathematical superiority. But there were no shields to degrade. No power readings to calculate. The human ship simply endured. Return fire, Admiral Day-Wan ordered calmly. Railgun 1 and 3. Minimal charge. Target the lead cruiser's portside weapons array. Lieutenant Jiwoo input the firing solution. Locked. Firing. The railguns were magnetically accelerated weapons using no explosives or energy beams. They simply threw solid metal slugs at incredible velocities. 2 rounds launched, invisible to the naked eye, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. The slugs hit the Kresh cruiser's shields. But unlike energy weapons, kinetic rounds didn't disperse against shields. They punched through. The first round tore through the weapons array, shredding metal and systems. The second round continued into the ship's interior, penetrating 3 decks before its momentum was finally arrested. Atmosphere vented from the holes. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut. And for the first time in 20,000 cycles of coalition warfare, there were casualties. 7 Kresh crew members died instantly when the railgun rounds passed through their stations. 14 more were injured by shrapnel and decompression. War Prime Kesh stared at his damage reports in absolute horror. They killed my crew. They actually killed them. The observation platform erupted in chaos. Aliens from a dozen species shouted in their various languages, all expressing the same shock and outrage. They broke the treaty. Someone screamed, "This is barbaric! Stop the engagement immediately!" Chancellor Vrax tried to restore order, clicking his mandibles loudly. The Luminar High Arbiter pulsed red, a color that meant extreme alarm in their species. Taeyang felt his stomach drop. "What's wrong?" "We followed your rules. We demonstrated superior capability." "You killed them!" a Margot representative shrieked. "In an exhibition? In a demonstration? This is unthinkable." Hana looked confused. "They fired first. We returned fire. This is combat." "This is supposed to be safe combat," Chancellor Vrax said, his voice modulated to show deep distress. "Calculated, controlled, you used weapons designed to kill." On the indomitable will, Ensign Yuna received frantic communications from Coalition Command. "Sir, they're ordering an immediate ceasefire. They're saying we violated the treaty." Admiral Daewon frowned. "We haven't violated anything. Check the treaty provisions." Commander Sung Ho pulled up the translated document. "Sir, there's nothing explicitly prohibiting lethal force, but all the language assumes non-lethal engagement. They don't have rules against killing because no one does it." The realization hit Daewon like a physical blow. The Coalition hadn't just ritualized war. They'd completely removed death from the equation. What seemed obvious to humans, that combat meant risking death, was utterly alien to them. "Ceasefire," he ordered. "All weapons safe. Hail the Kresh vessels." War Prime Kesh's face appeared on the view screen, scales pale with shock. You murdered my warriors." "I'm sorry," Daewon said, and he meant it. "We did not understand the extent of your engagement protocols. Our weapons are designed differently than yours." "Designed to kill," Kesh whispered. "All of them? All your weapons?" Daewon hesitated, then nodded. "Yes. In human warfare, the goal is to remove the enemy's ability to fight permanently." The Kresh commander terminated the connection. His 3 cruisers withdrew at maximum speed, fleeing the human ship like prey escaping a predator. Back on the observation platform, Taeyang tried desperately to explain. "On Earth, we've fought wars for our entire history. Real wars, wars of survival. We didn't have the luxury of making them safe." "Then you are not civilized," a Duran representative said coldly. "You are killers wearing the mask of civilization." "We are survivors," Hana shot back. "There's a difference." The Luminar High Arbiter pulsed slowly, processing. "We must convene the full council. This changes everything. Humanity has demonstrated capabilities that violate the fundamental principles of coalition warfare. Not technically, perhaps, but philosophically, absolutely." Emergency sessions were called. The indomitable will was ordered to maintain position, but not approach any coalition vessels or stations. Admiral Daewon found himself in an impossible situation. He'd followed his orders, demonstrated human capabilities, but in doing so, he'd revealed something the coalition found terrifying. Humanity didn't play at war. They waged it, with full commitment, accepting terrible costs, designing every weapon and tactic to achieve actual victory rather than calculated superiority. Commander Taeyang sat alone in his quarters on the diplomatic shuttle, watching news feeds from Coalition space. They were calling humans monsters, barbarians, a threat to everything the Coalition had built. Captain Hana joined him. "We showed them who we are, what we're capable of. Isn't that what they asked for?" "They asked for a demonstration," Taeyang said quietly. "We gave them a nightmare." In the darkness between stars aboard the indomitable will, Admiral Daewon addressed his crew. "We did nothing wrong. We are what our history made us. Warriors who understand the true cost of conflict. The Coalition will have to decide if that makes us allies or enemies." The galaxy held its breath, suddenly aware that humanity represented something they'd thought extinct. Real warriors, real war, and no one knew what to do about it. The council chambers had never been so tense. Representatives from all 23 Coalition species gathered in emergency session. The question before them was simple but profound. What do we do about humanity? Chancellor Vrax opened the proceedings with unusual gravity. "We face a situation without precedent. A species seeking membership who possesses military capabilities, fundamentally incompatible with our Treaty of Controlled Engagement. The Luminar High Arbiter projected analysis data into the central display. Our examination of the human vessel Indomitable Will reveals disturbing patterns. Every system is designed for maximum destruction. Their armor is meant to withstand sustained assault. Their weapons are built to penetrate defenses and inflict casualties. This is not a warship as we understand them. This is a ship designed to survive apocalyptic conflict. A Margat representative spoke up. We should expel them immediately. Before they contaminate our civilization with their barbarism, we should quarantine their space, another added. Prevent them from spreading beyond their own system. War Prime Kesh stood, his scales still pale from shock. I have fought in 17 campaigns. I hold the Coalition's highest military honors, but I have never been afraid of an enemy until now. He paused. The humans used minimal force. Their commander told me this directly. What they did to my cruiser was their version of restraint. The chamber fell silent at this admission. Tai Yang and Hana stood in the center of the chamber, feeling the weight of countless alien eyes upon them. Finally, Tai Yang was given permission to speak. I understand your fear, he began. I understand that what you saw disturbs you, but you must understand our history to understand us. He activated a human data core, projecting images into the chamber. This is Earth, one planet. 7 billion humans. For thousands of years we fought each other. Over territory, over resources, over ideas. We nearly destroyed ourselves multiple times. The images showed warfare throughout human history. Ancient battles with swords and arrows, modern conflicts with tanks and aircraft, the nuclear detonations that ended the last war, the orbital strikes during the resource wars. We killed millions of our own kind, Taeyang continued. Not because we wanted to, because we had to, because survival demanded it, because the alternative was extinction, a Darren representative interrupted. Then you are a violent species, unsuitable for civilized society. We were a violent species, Hana corrected. Past tense. The resource wars ended 30 years ago. Since then, Earth has been unified. We've had peace. We dismantled most of our weapons. We focused on science, art, exploration, but we remember what war costs. We remember because forgetting would dishonor everyone who died learning those lessons. The Luminar High Arbiter pulsed thoughtfully. You claim to be peaceful now, yet your warship is designed for total warfare. Because peace without strength is just waiting to be conquered, Hana said bluntly. The Indomitable Will exists so that we never have to use it. Its presence deters conflict. You may find this concept barbaric, but it has kept Earth safe. Chancellor Vrax clicked his mandibles. A concerning philosophy, but let us examine specifics. Your weapons, the railguns that killed Kresh warriors, explain their purpose. Admiral Daewon had been granted remote participation. His image appeared in the chamber. Railguns use kinetic energy, solid projectiles accelerated to extreme velocities. They're effective against both shields and armor. They never run out of ammunition as long as we have metal, and they're nearly impossible to defend against without significant mass. Why not use plasma weapons like civilized species? Someone asked. We do, Daewon replied, for different purposes. But plasma disperses over distance. It can be deflected by magnetic fields. In human warfare, you need multiple weapon systems to address different threats. Redundancy, adaptability. A Vraxi military observer asked, you mentioned earlier that you used minimal force. What would maximum force look like? Daewon hesitated. The Indomitable Will carries nuclear-tipped missiles. Fusion warheads measured in megatons. At maximum force, I could have vaporized all 3 Kresh cruisers instantly. The chamber erupted in horrified voices. Nuclear weapons were known in Coalition history, but considered extinct relics of primitive times. No civilized species use them anymore. War Prime Kesh's scales shifted through colors expressing emotions humans couldn't translate. You carry weapons of planetary destruction on a standard warship? It's not standard, Daewon clarified. It's a battleship, our most powerful vessel class. But yes, in human doctrine, a warship must be capable of fighting anything from pirates to planetary defenses. We design for worst-case scenarios. Major Kyung-soo, the Marine commander aboard the Indomitable Will, added his voice. Respectfully, we don't understand your confusion. What's the point of a military if it can't actually win wars? Your whole system seems designed to avoid victory. Because victory through annihilation is not victory, Chancellor Vrax said firmly. It is mutual destruction. The Coalition has eliminated that possibility. You've eliminated it by making war into theater, Kyung-soo countered. But what happens when you face an enemy who doesn't follow your rules? Who doesn't care about your calculations? Who fights to exterminate you? Such enemies do not exist, the Luminar High Arbiter stated. All intelligent species recognize the logic of controlled engagement. You hope all intelligent species do? Hana said quietly. But hope isn't strategy. The debates continued for hours. Some called for humanity's immediate expulsion. Others suggested observation and study. A few, including Chancellor Vrax, argued for conditional membership with strict weapons restrictions. Then the emergency alerts began. Klaxons blared across the council chamber. Displays lit up with incoming reports. Coalition border stations were under attack, not by calculated controlled forces, but by something else entirely. The Vraxi border monitoring station transmitted its final message. Unknown bioships, thousands, not responding to hails. They're not trying to disable us. They're consuming us. Static more reports flooded in. The Luminar crystalline habitats near the outer rim reported attacks. Swarms of organic vessels that grew and replicated. They didn't fire energy weapons. They simply latched onto structures and consumed them, using the mass to create more ships. Vryn, an old Vraxi archivist, whispered. The swarm has returned. Chancellor Vrax's translator carried pure fear. The Vryn were extinct. We drove them back into deep space 10,000 cycles ago. Apparently they weren't extinct enough, Lieutenant Ji Woo observed from the Indomitable Will, monitoring Coalition military channels. The Coalition defense fleets mobilized according to doctrine. They formed battle lines, calculated firing solutions, prepared for controlled engagement. The Vryn swarm ignored all of it. They simply attacked, accepting catastrophic losses, overwhelming defenses through sheer numbers. A Margat colony fell within hours. The defense fleet withdrew when their shields reached critical levels, following proper protocol. The Vryn did not. They pursued, they slaughtered, they consumed. In the council chamber, panic set in. This was not war as they understood it. This was something primal, something they'd thought extinct from the galaxy. This was survival warfare. Chancellor Vrax turned to Tae Yang, his voice carrying desperation. You said your people understand real war. War for survival. We need your help. We just killed 7 of War Prime Kesh's crew by accident, Tae Yang said. And now you want us to kill your enemies on purpose? Yes, Vrax said simply. Because the Vryn won't stop when shields fail. They won't accept calculated defeat. They will consume everything unless we stop them, and our forces don't know how to fight that kind of enemy. Hana looked at Tae Yang. They both understood the irony. The Coalition had rejected humanity for being too violent. Now they needed that violence. Admiral Daewon received authorization from Earth Command within the hour. We'll help. But you need to understand what you're asking for. Once we engage the Vryn with full force, Coalition species will see what human warfare actually looks like. It won't be clean. It won't be calculated. People will die. Maybe a lot of people. We are already dying, the Luminar High Arbiter said quietly. At least give us a chance to die fighting. The Indomitable Will received new orders. 2 destroyer escorts and a carrier with fighter squadrons were en route from Earth. They would form a task force to assist Coalition defense. Lieutenant Commander Bo-Ra, the fighter wing leader, began briefing her pilots. We're going into a real combat situation. Not an exhibition. Not a drill. Some of you will probably die, but we're going to show the Coalition what human pilots can do. Ensign Yuna coordinated with Coalition forces, sharing human tactical doctrine. The concepts were alien to them. Acceptable losses, strategic sacrifice, fighting retreats. These were phrases that didn't translate well into species that had spent millennia avoiding real violence. On the bridge, Admiral Daewon studied intelligence reports on the Vryn. They were a hive mind, each ship a small part of a larger consciousness. They reproduced rapidly, using consumed matter as fuel. They had no concept of surrender or negotiation. They simply expanded and consumed. They're like a disease, Commander Sung-ho observed. Diseases can be cured, Daewon replied. You just need the right medicine. The Luminar home system was dying. Admiral Daewon watched the tactical display with grim focus as the Indomitable Will dropped out of hyperspace. What should have been a beautiful system of crystalline habitats and elegant orbital structures was now a battlefield. Hundreds of Vryn bioships swarmed through space like locusts. Each one was organic, grown rather than built, covered in chitinous armor that pulsed with sickly light. They varied in size from small fighters to massive cluster ships the size of space stations. And they were everywhere. "Sir, I'm reading over 300 distinct Vryn vessels," Lieutenant Jiwoo reported. "Coalition defense fleet is engaged but falling back. They've lost 17 ships already." Commander Sung-ho studied the coalition formations. They're still fighting by their doctrine, maintaining distance, trying to wear down enemy numbers through calculated fire. "It's not working." "Of course it's not working," Daewon said. "The Vryn don't care about losses. Every ship they lose, they just grow another one from consumed matter." He opened communications. "All human vessels, this is Admiral Daewon. We're not here to follow coalition engagement protocols. We're here to win. Captains, you have tactical autonomy. Fight smart, but fight hard." The destroyer escorts, Swiftblade and Iron Resolve, peeled off to engage Vryn formations harassing evacuation transports. The carrier Steadfast launched its fighter squadrons into the chaos. Lieutenant Commander Bora led Red Squadron into the swarm. Her fighter was small, agile, built for dogfighting rather than calculated engagement. "All pilots, pick your targets and engage. Don't wait for firing solutions to be optimal. Good enough is good enough when there's this many enemies." Coalition observers watched in fascination as human fighters dove into the Vryn swarm with aggressive tactics they'd never seen. No maintaining safe distance. No calculated approach vectors. Just pure aggression. Bora locked onto a Vryn fighter analog, firing her autocannons in short bursts. The Vryn ship exploded in a shower of organic matter. She didn't celebrate, immediately rolling to target another. Her wingman, Lieutenant Taemin, stayed glued to her position, covering her attacks. "3 on our 6, Taemin called out. "I see them. Break left on my mark." 3, 2, 1 mark. Both fighters split in opposite directions. The Vryn pursuers followed Bora. Taemin looped back, coming in behind them, missiles locked. Fox 3, Fox 3. 2 missiles streaked into the Vryn formation. Direct hits. But the third Vryn kept coming, damaged but functional. It slammed into Taemin's fighter before he could evade. "Taemin is hit," someone shouted over the squadron channel. Bora saw her wingman's fighter tumbling, trailing atmosphere. "Taemin, eject!" "Eject now." "Can't." "Control's not responding." Taemin's voice was strained. Then his fighter exploded as its fuel cells ruptured. Bora felt the loss like a physical blow, but she couldn't stop. Couldn't mourn, not now. "Red Squadron, continue the attack. Remember your training. Remember why we fight." The indomitable will pushed deeper into the swarm. Vryn ships surrounded it, trying to do what they did to all prey, overwhelm with numbers and latch on to consume. But the human battleship was not like coalition vessels. When Vryn fighters struck its hull, point defense systems activated. Rapid-fire cannons designed to shoot down incoming missiles turned their attention to organic attackers. The Vryn died in droves, shredded by defensive fire. Larger Vryn ships tried to close range. The indomitable will's railguns spoke with thunder. Solid slugs tore through bioship armor like paper. Where coalition plasma weapons took time to burn through organic matter, kinetic rounds simply destroyed everything in their path. "Sir, we have a cluster ship moving to intercept," Jiwoo warned. "It's massive, at least 2 kilometers long." Daewon studied the targeting data. The cluster ship was essentially a mobile factory, growing smaller Vryn vessels within its bulk. Destroying it would significantly reduce enemy reinforcements. "Target the cluster ship. Full missile barrage. Authorization code Daewon Alpha 7. "Sir, that's nuclear authorization," Commander Sung-ho said quietly. "I know what it is. Fire when ready." The missile bays opened. 12 missiles launched in rapid succession. But these weren't conventional warheads. These were fusion devices, each one capable of vaporizing a city. The missiles accelerated toward the cluster ship. Vryn point defenses tried to intercept but were overwhelmed by human electronic countermeasures. 10 missiles reached their target. 10 fusion detonations bloomed in space like newborn stars. The cluster ship simply ceased to exist, atomized by temperatures rivaling the core of a sun. Hundreds of Vryn ships growing inside it died instantly. The shockwave destroyed dozens more in the vicinity. On coalition observation vessels, absolute silence fell. They had just witnessed humanity use weapons of mass destruction in open warfare, deliberately, efficiently, without hesitation. Chancellor Vrax's voice trembled as he spoke to Tai Yang and Hana, who watched from a coalition command ship. "Is this what human warfare looks like?" "This is what survival looks like," Hana replied. "We told you. We designed for worst-case scenarios." The battle raged for hours. Human fighters accepted losses that would have forced coalition squadrons to withdraw. When Red Squadron was reduced to half strength, Bora didn't retreat. She regrouped the survivors and pushed back in. The destroyer Swiftblade took critical damage when 3 Vryn ships managed to latch onto its hull. Instead of withdrawing, Captain Minsu ordered his crew to set the ship's reactor to overload. "Evacuate all hands to escape pods. We're going to make this count." The evacuation took precious minutes. Vryn ships continued to tear into the destroyer's hull, consuming its mass. Then the reactor went critical. The explosion destroyed the Swiftblade and every Vryn ship within 2 kilometers. Major Kyung-soo led his Marines in a desperate defense when several Vryn boarding organisms managed to penetrate the Indomitable Will's outer armor. The creatures were like massive insects, all claws and teeth and mindless hunger. "Fall back to checkpoint 7. Kyung-soo ordered his squad. "Set up a kill zone." The Marines retreated in good order, laying explosive traps and setting up overlapping fields of fire. When the Vryn rounded the corner, they ran into a wall of gunfire and grenades. The creatures died in heaps, but more kept coming. "We can't hold this position much longer," Sergeant Hyo-jin reported, her rifle overheating from sustained fire. "We don't have to hold forever," Kyung-soo replied. "Just long enough." He triggered the explosive charges they'd planted on the corridor walls. The entire section collapsed, sealing off the Vryn incursion. Dozens of the creatures were buried in debris. The rest were trapped on the other side, cut off from reinforcements. "Damage control teams, get here now," Kyung-soo ordered. "Patch those breaches before more get in." On the bridge, Ensign Yuna coordinated with coalition forces, trying to teach them human tactics in real time. "Stop trying to calculate optimal outcomes. Just focus fire on priority targets. Accept that you're going to take damage. Accept that some of you will die. But if we break their assault here, we save billions," a Margat captain responded hesitantly. "This goes against all our training. Our doctrine emphasizes preservation of assets." "Your doctrine was designed for fighting other coalition species," Yuna shot back. "The Vryn don't care about your doctrine. Adapt or die." Slowly, desperately, coalition forces began to change their tactics. They stopped retreating when shields reached critical levels. They focused fire, concentrating damage instead of spreading it evenly. They started to fight like humans. It was costly. Coalition casualties mounted higher than any conflict in their recorded history. But the Vryn advance began to falter. Their numbers, which had seemed infinite, started to thin. Admiral Daewon saw the turning point on his tactical display. "They're trying to break off. Don't let them. If they escape, they'll just consume another system and come back stronger. Press the attack." The Indomitable Will, scarred and battered, pushed forward. Its crew was exhausted, many wounded, some dead. But they didn't stop. Couldn't stop. This was what they'd trained for. What their entire history had prepared them for. The final Vryn cluster ship tried to flee into hyperspace. Lieutenant Jiwoo locked weapons on its drive system. "Sir, if we destroy it while it's jumping, the explosion could be catastrophic." "Do it anyway," Daewon ordered. The railgun rounds struck true. The Vryn ship's hyperspace drive detonated as it tried to activate, creating a tear in spacetime that consumed the vessel and everything near it. The remaining Vryn forces, cut off from their hive coordination, became disorganized and were systematically eliminated. When the battle finally ended, the aftermath was sobering. The Luminar home system was saved, but the cost was severe. The Swiftblade was gone, along with its entire crew except for the evacuees. Red Squadron had lost 6 pilots out of 12. The Indomitable Will had 37 dead, including Ensign Yuna's assistant, Corporal Jiho, killed when a Vryn boarding organism breached the communications station. Coalition forces had suffered too. 8 ships destroyed completely. Hundreds of crew members dead. For a civilization that had gone millennia without combat deaths, it was a catastrophic loss. But the Luminar home system, with its billions of inhabitants, survived. 3 months after the Battle of Luminar, Admiral Day-Wan stood in a coalition medical facility, watching physical therapists help him relearn to walk. A Vrin organism had nearly killed him when his bridge was breached. He survived, but his left leg would never be the same. "You push too hard," the Luminar medical specialist said, its crystalline body pulsing with concern. "Healing requires patience." "Don't have time for patience," Day-Wan replied, gritting his teeth through another painful step. Too much work to do, and there was work. The Vrin had launched 2 more major offensives after Luminar. Each time, coalition forces fought them back with increasing effectiveness. But each battle cost lives. The galaxy was learning what humans had always known, that peace was maintained by those willing to pay the price of war. In the council chambers, everything had changed. Where once there were debates about protocol and calculation, now there were tactical planning sessions. War Prime Kesh, his scales now permanently marked with patterns honoring his dead crew members, worked alongside human military advisors. "The Vrin will attack the Vraxi outer colonies next," Kesh said, studying stellar maps. 3 systems lightly defended. Prime targets for their consumption pattern. Captain Hana pointed to defensive positions. "We need to preposition forces here and here, not to wait for the attack but to ambush their approach vectors." A Vraxi admiral clicked his mandibles uncertainly. Ambush tactics were considered dishonorable in the old treaty. The old treaty was written for a galaxy that didn't have the Vrin in it, Hana replied bluntly. "Honor doesn't matter to an enemy that wants to eat you. Results matter. Survival matters." Chancellor Vrax, who had aged visibly in the past months, nodded slowly. "Captain Hana is correct. We are drafting amendments to the treaty. Human warfare doctrine will be incorporated for scenarios involving existential threats." Taeyang sat in on these sessions, no longer just a diplomat, but a bridge between civilizations. He watched coalition species slowly, painfully learn concepts humans took for granted. The idea that sometimes you had to strike first, that overwhelming force could prevent prolonged conflict, that showing strength was often more merciful than showing weakness. "It's strange," he said to Hana one evening. "We spent centuries trying to become less violent. Now we're teaching others how to fight." "We're teaching them how to survive," Hana corrected. "There's a difference. We never forgot that violence is sometimes necessary. They forgot entirely. Both extremes are dangerous." The indomitable will had returned to Earth for major repairs. Admiral Day-Wan walked through its corridors one last time before departing for his new assignment. The ship bore scars from multiple battles now. Armor plates were patchworks of replacement sections. Hull markings commemorated the 37 crew members who would never return home. Lieutenant Jiwoo approached him, her arm still in a support brace from injuries sustained in the last battle. "Sir, I wanted to ask, do you think what we're doing is right? Teaching them to fight like us?" Day-One considered the question carefully. "We're not teaching them to fight like us. We're teaching them to fight at all. The Vrin would have consumed the entire coalition if we hadn't intervened. Would you rather they died because they didn't know how to defend themselves?" "No, sir. But I see the way they look at us now. There's fear mixed with the gratitude." "Good," Day-One said quietly. "They should fear us. Not because we're cruel, but because they understand what we're capable of. That fear will make them think twice about starting wars they can't win, and it might make our alliance stronger because they know we can end threats they can't." Construction yards throughout coalition space worked on new ship designs, hybrid vessels that combined elegant energy systems with human-style kinetic weapons and armor. The first of these ships was named Human Remembrance, honoring the human dead from Luminar. The launch ceremony was attended by representatives from every coalition species. Captain Hana stood beside the Luminar High Arbiter as the ship was commissioned. "This vessel represents a new era," the Arbiter announced, its light patterns flowing with solemn pride. "We have learned that peace requires strength. That civilization does not mean forgetting how to fight. It means knowing when to fight and what to fight for." The Human Remembrance was impressive, sleeker than pure human designs but more brutal than traditional coalition vessels. Its weapon systems could engage in calculated coalition-style warfare, or switch to full human doctrine if needed. It was a perfect symbol of the new galaxy. War Prime Kesh approached Admiral Day-Wan at the reception following the launch. The Kresh commander had requested human military advisors for his entire fleet. His species, warrior by tradition, had discovered they'd forgotten what being warriors actually meant. "Admiral, I must confess something," Kesh said, his scales showing patterns of respect. When we first met, I thought humans were primitive, barbaric. I was wrong. You are not barbaric. You are honest about what war costs. We had become dishonest, pretending war could be safe. You forced us to remember the truth. Day one accepted this with a nod. Your crews fight well now. You learn fast because we must. The Vryn do not give us a choice. Kesh paused. But I wonder, Admiral, when this threat ends, will the galaxy remember these lessons? Or will we slowly drift back to comfortable calculations? That's up to you, Day one replied. Humans will always remember. Our history won't let us forget. But your people, all coalition species, you have the chance to choose. Just make sure it's a choice, not amnesia. Major Kyung-soo ran training exercises for coalition ground forces. The Marines from the Indomitable Will had become legendary, especially after their corridor defense against Vryn boarding organisms. Now Kyung-soo taught Vraxi, Margat, Luminar, and Kresh troops how to fight in close quarters, how to hold positions against overwhelming odds, how to accept casualties while achieving objectives. You will take losses, he told a mixed species training class. Some of you will die. That's not pessimism, it's reality. But if you follow doctrine, if you trust your squad mates, if you focus on the mission, those losses will mean something. They'll buy victory. They'll save others. A young Margat soldier raised a foreclaw. Instructor, how do you deal with the fear? Knowing you might die? Kyung-soo smiled grimly. You don't stop being afraid. Fear keeps you sharp. You just learn to function despite it. You fight for the person next to you. You fight so your species survives. You fight because someone has to and you're the one who can. Lieutenant Commander Bo-Ra, promoted after Luminar, trained coalition pilots. Her squadron had grown, now a mix of human and alien pilots flying together. The integration was challenging. Different species had different reaction times and spatial awareness. But it worked. During a joint exercise, a Luminar pilot made a mistake that would have gotten them killed in real combat. Bo-Ra didn't yell or punish. She just replayed the footage and asked, "What did you learn?" "That I prioritized survival over objective completion," the pilot admitted, its crystal body dimming with shame. "Wrong," Bo-Ra said. "You learned that survival instincts need to be balanced with mission requirements. Now you know where that balance is. Next time you'll do better. That's why we train, so mistakes happen here, not in actual combat." The Vryn launched their largest offensive yet, a coordinated strike across multiple systems. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Coalition forces, trained in human doctrine, didn't wait for the Vryn to establish positions. They struck hard and fast, using ambush tactics and concentrated firepower. The battle lasted only 3 days. Coalition casualties were significant by their historical standards, but minimal compared to what they would have been months ago. The Vryn were pushed back, their expansion halted, their consumed territories slowly liberated. After the battle, the Coalition Council met to discuss long-term strategy. For the first time, they weren't just reacting to threats. They were planning offensive operations to eliminate the Vryn entirely. "We must destroy their central hive clusters," Chancellor Vrax proposed. "Eliminate their ability to coordinate and reproduce." "Agreed," Taeyang said. "But that means taking the fight into Vryn territory. Deep strikes, high casualties. Are your people ready for that?" The council members looked at each other. These were species that had avoided such aggressive warfare for millennia. But they were different now. Tempered by loss, taught by humans, understanding the true cost and true necessity of survival combat. "We are ready," the Luminar High Arbiter said. "Because we must be." 1 year after the first contact, Earth officially joined the Galactic Coalition. But the coalition humanity joined was fundamentally different from the one that had first welcomed them. It was harder, more realistic, but also stronger and more unified. The ceremony was grand but somber. Admiral Day One, still walking with a slight limp, stood beside Chancellor Vrax as the treaty was signed. "When we first met," Vrax said, "we thought you were barbaric. We feared what you represented. We were wrong to fear you and right to fear for ourselves. You showed us that we had become soft, that our civilization was built on the assumption that nothing truly dangerous would ever challenge us." Taeyang responded, "And we learned that surviving war isn't the same as being wise.